When the 2009 Mac Pro came out, it didn't take very long for people to find out its secrets and ways to upgrade it beyond what Apple intended. One of those upgrade abilities came with the release of firmware that turned your older, slower 2009 Mac Pro into a shiny 2010 Mac Pro, bringing support for Westmere Xeons, which, in fact, does include 6 core CPUs. So today, I'm going to be taking a look at the best config possible for this Mac Pro with dual Xeon X5690s. Yeah, this is a 2009 Mac Pro running Xeon X5690s. As far as specs are concerned, each X5690 has 6 cores and 12 threads, and is on the Westmere architecture. It has 12 megabytes of unified level 3 cache, and has a very hot TDP of 130 watts. But there is a good reason for that. That reason just so happens to be the base clock speed of 3.46 gigahertz, with boost speeds hitting 3.73 gigahertz, which doesn't sound like a lot these days, but is crazy quick for an old server CPU. It also has 3 memory channels, just like all LGA 1366 CPUs, but it differs from Nehalem by supporting DDR3 at 1333 MHz, which the Mac Pro immediately recognized and bumped all my RAM up to that speed. It really took a lot of pain and wasted cash to get dual X5690s in my Mac Pro though. For some reason, Apple decided to delid or remove the IHS to improve thermal conductivity, theoretically. Because of this, an upgrade isn't super straightforward at all, as you either have to use washers and extra thick thermal pads, or delid your CPUs, both of which being very annoying to deal with. I just so happened to use both methods. I deleted one CPU, and the other I just plopped in with a thick thermal pad and didn't crank down the cooler all the way. I really wanted to film the upgrading and deleting process, but I didn't bother after I mutilated 2 X5675s. Anyways, for all benchmarks today, I will be including results from the previous config of this machine with the stock X5550s to show you just how much extra performance you can squeeze out of this machine for not that much more if you, say, go for X5675s instead of X5690s. We will once again be using my 2080 Ti for benchmarks, which will still be power limited to 60%. So, let's head on to the gaming benchmarks. So, on screen now, you are seeing the results of the stock CPUs that this Mac Pro was configured with at the factory. Not bad, right? Well, let's just see how much more performance we can get out of 4 extra cores at 730 extra megahertz. Vivecraft, the Minecraft Java VR mod, ran quite a bit better at 43 FPS, with lows being completely reasonable at 30 FPS. So this time, it is actually kinda playable. VR Chat also got an enormous performance boost to 52 FPS, with lows getting a bit on the low side at 32 FPS. Elite Dangerous in VR didn't see much of an improvement with 59 FPS on average, but that is more down to asynchronous space warp being dumb, because I use a Quest 2. So, VR games got quite the performance boost, but how well does that translate to standard games? Well, really well, funnily enough, with Crossout hitting a very nice 125 FPS on average, with lows not straying too far behind at 71 FPS. Orion saw a very nice improvement to playable frame rates at 50 FPS on average, with still playable lows at 24. BeamNG Drive saw a decent performance boost with one car at 87 FPS on average, with 59 FPS for the 1% lows, but the big improvement came with multiple cars spawned. This machine can now handle 8 cars versus the 4 before, with the stock CPUs before becoming unplayable. Rocket League saw a decent linear improvement to 177 FPS, with lows staying at 101. Shadow of the Tomb Raider ran even better than with the X5550s at 95 FPS, and the lows seeing a massive bump up to 74. So, looking at the bar graph now with these results, it's very easy to see that even slightly slower X5675s will be a massive performance improvement over the original Nehalem CPUs. Now though, let's see if there are any performance improvements in productivity. I'm going to be using the same benchmarks from last time to show just how big of a jump this is going to be in performance. On screen are the scores of the previous dual 5550s, and, while not bad, are kinda sad when you can compare it to a 3-year-old APU. Anyways, with Cinebench R23, these Xeons scored 8,026 points for multi-core and 548 points for single-core. While the multi-core score bump was certainly expected, the single-core score bump actually surprised me a fair bit with just how much faster it actually is. Next, with the Blender Open benchmark, we get a score of 121.43. Now, putting that into context, these Xeons scored only 9 points less than an i7-9700K, which is far more impressive than a 3400G. And last, with 3D Mark running the CPU profile benchmark, I got a score of 3,100 points across all cores and 238 points for a single core. Once again, showing huge performance improvements for spending not that much money. So, looking at the stock versus upgraded scores, it's easy to see that there's a lot of life left in this thing in terms of both gaming and productivity performance. However, all web tests I tried felt exactly the same as they did before, for the most part, other than maybe loading slightly faster. Now, I think it's time to close out the video with my final thoughts on this 2009 Mac Pro. I had hoped to make a CPU upgrade video, but sadly that didn't happen, as I just wasn't up for it. Quite honestly though, don't spend the $80 for dual X5690s like I did, and instead spend the $22 for dual X5675s. You'll get literally like 95 to 98% of the performance for a quarter of the price, and at the bonus of less power consumption and less heat. It is rather impressive just how much performance can be squeezed out of a machine that is this old. And due to how fast this machine is now, I'm comfortable saying that you could put a GPU as fast as a GTX 1080 Ti or perhaps even a 2070 Super and not be leaving too much performance on the table. Yeah, this is a seriously quick machine still, and a great little 3D modeling and rendering machine for the cache, especially if you are on macOS using a program like Final Cut or something. Well, that's it. If you enjoyed today's video, you can show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and even helping me out on Patreon. I once again apologize for taking so long to make this video, but I haven't had a job, and trying to get one and failing has been getting me down. But anyways, DDT out.